This is Dan Tortora here with Ioan Gruffudd, and of course, Mr. Fantastic to me. How are you, Ioan?
Very well, Dan. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, and I told you off the air that I wanted the opportunity to meet you after hearing you and Michael Chiklis talk about life, chasing your dreams, and just seeming genuine. And just what does that mean to you to make sure that people see that in the world, that there is a genuine human being, a good person behind the music, so to speak, behind the movie?
Well, it's very kind of you to say. I think the beauty of acting is that it is a reflection of the world that we live in. You know, we are observers ourselves, and that's what we do. We try to give life to characters that have been created on the page, but we have to draw on real life. And I think, like Michael said this morning, you have to stay curious and be curious, and not only observe humans as they're walking by and sort of imagine what their story is like and their physicalities and everything, but you know, what their emotional life is and what they go through. And things like the Comic-Con do make you humble, because you meet people who are who've been affected by the things that you've done in the same way that I would have been affected as a young person watching a TV show or a movie or whatever. For example, at the end of the 70s, early 80s, like Star Wars, you know, was the big franchise that I fell in love with and I could quote, and that stayed with me forever. And when I meet people at the conventions, they've had the same effect from watching the Fantastic Four. And so that human interaction makes you realize that, what I've done has had an impact on somebody in the same way that I was impacted myself. So it's a beautiful sort of circle of life, really, in that sense.
And working with Michael Chiklis, we got to hear a little bit about your interaction, but also Jessica Alba and Chris Evans. What was that family, being the first family on and off the air, what was that like?
That was a terrific time, because we were all very much aware that this was a big deal. You know, this was a big opportunity, a big movie, a big franchise in the making, and a beloved comic book. So there was a lot of responsibility on us to bring our characters to life. So many people have different opinions, obviously, because it's a comic book and it's a work of art. And also there was a responsibility to, as you said, to bring that family unit together, to be believable, because they were a family in the comic books. And the nature of the comic books, especially the original Fantastic Four, they are family orientated. They do work together as a team. And all their suffering and their victories and their defeats, they suffer as a family. So that was important to us to bring that to life and to convey that.
Did you see the first steps?
I have seen the first steps. I thought it was terrific. Honestly, the production design especially was stunning. I thought to have that retro 50s, 60s set in the future kind of vibe was incredible. Of course, the scale of it is just extraordinary compared to what we were able to do 20 years ago. What they're able to do now technically was just mind-blowing. It was stunning to watch. And I've got to say, I absolutely loved the characters. And it was so emotional. I found myself welling up towards the end of the movie, you know, and I was especially moved because I got invited to the premiere. I got invited to share in this beautiful comic book, in this beautiful franchise that I'm a part of. And I thought that was such a classy, beautiful touch to being invited to join in the festivities and the celebration of the continuance of this beautiful comic book.
Did you realize that they kind of stole two pieces from Rise of the Silver Surfer? On how the Silver Surfer comes down and greets them and warns them was very similar to Nora and Rad in your movie. And when Johnny chases the Silver Surfer and then loses the power and falls back toward the earth, they had that moment as well. So I was like, I hope the cast knows that they did take a couple elements from Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Well, that's very, very observant of you. I hadn't clocked that, to be honest with you. I was so immersed in the movie, I was enjoying it so much. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful homage, you know, to the franchise, to the original Fantastic Four that we did 20 years ago. But what's beautiful about it, it's its own film. And it's a beautiful film, and I loved it, and I was cheering them on, and I was very very honoured to be there for the world premiere in LA.
You said it was all about a baby, and your wife is about to have your daughter, right?
Yes.
So what has that experience been like for you? I know you talked about having to cook more, but the person behind me. I feel like people sometimes come to Comic-Cons and forget that there's a human being behind the actor. So what has life been like for you, and enjoyment of what's to come?
Look, I've had an incredible life and career as an actor, and as we started the conversation, we are human beings, and we have a talent and we have a craft that we've worked on for over the years, and it's just a beautiful interaction to be at a place like this where the work that you've done has affected people and rubbed off on people in such a beautiful way. So it's a convention of love, really, at the end of the day, and that's the big takeaway. The first one I did, one of these, was back in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think it must have been 15 years or so ago, and I just remember going a bit nervous and apprehensive, not sure what to expect, and then leaving, like walking on air, because there was so much love that was coming across the table, and so much vulnerability. And when you listen to people's stories, you realize everyone has a story. Everyone's unique. Everyone has their ups and downs and things that they're fighting, health issues, family issues, or whatever. And it's we're all in this together, as it were.
Well, final two pieces, and you kind of led into it, but being at these conventions and knowing the characters that you played are timeless, and that all these years later people are still moved. They want to see you come back. They want to see you reprise your role. You said you would. So I mean, to know that it never dies. I mean, it's not a movie that was made a year ago. It could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but these conventions, like you said, a convention of love, that people will always remember the work that you've done, just what that means to you and how that touches your heart.
Well, it does touch your heart, because time ticks on, time goes by, and you evolve and you grow and you age, and the beauty of things that you remember from your childhood are still there as fond, beautiful memories, and I'm part of that for so many people that come to say hello at the table. And there's a cyclical nature to it, and it has been 20 years ago, but I remember shooting a movie like it was yesterday. I remember promoting it like it was yesterday, and now 20 years later I get to meet people who watched it as a child and who are now in their mid-20s or adults or whatever, and they're how it affected them. You can just see it in their eyes, and it's such a heartwarming experience.
And just a final note to people out there, because you and Michael had such a positive message that touched my heart. What do you want to say to people in this world that are trying to find their way, going through adversity and looking for positivity in a world that sometimes feels negative?
Well, I think one of the things is that I think if you just strike up a conversation with somebody, if you talk about what you're going through, that's the big thing. If you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody and say, look, I'd love to talk to you, I need some help. Talking about it is that first step towards healing, without a doubt. So, and even, and also to be curious as well. If you just, for example, if you're in a taxi cab, or you're on a train or something, and if you happen to strike up a conversation with somebody, you'll quickly realize that everybody has the same things in common. Their worries, their anxieties, their pain, their excitement about the future, their ambition or whatever. So if you just stay curious and ask those questions, you'll realize, this person's very similar to me and going through the same thing, perhaps. So it's not to sit there in silence. Reaching out or asking a question or being curious or asking for help or whatever it is the first step.
Well, Johan, I can honestly say, as a kid watching Mr. Fantastic and seeing you on the screen, I thought that meant the world to me to see that character come to life through you, but this tops it all in a conversation that I'm gonna put the pun in. It was truly fantastic.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, Dan. Pleasure.